you have been anxious or sensitized for months or years, calm feels like the promised land. Of course you want it. Of course it feels like the answer and the goal. And unfortunately, the wellness space has also reinforced this, telling us that a regulated nervous system is soft and peaceful and quiet. So then you use that information to measure your progress based on how calm do you feel. And then when you don't feel calm, when you don't feel peaceful and quiet, you assume that you're failing. And so I'm here to tell you that regulation was never about calm. It was always about capacity. And this one distinction about what the goal actually is going to change how you approach everything. So in this video, I'm going to break down what capacity actually is and why calm is the wrong target. So let's talk about what people picture when they think about a regulated nervous system. Someone who is serene, unbothered about everything, very soft-spoken, someone who just feels peaceful all the time, someone who meditates, who never gets upset. And this is just not accurate. A regulated nervous system isn't necessarily a quiet one. It isn't one with no activation. In fact, I consider a regulated nervous system to be someone who has range. That capacity is the ability to hold the intensity of emotions like stress, excitement, joy, passion, grief. And you need to be able to have that range and to hold all of those emotions without collapsing or shutting down or freaking the hell out. An easy way to think about this with capacity is to consider it like a container. Regulation means that your container is simply big enough to hold whatever's thrown into it. So you have the capacity for whatever life throws at you. And calm is just one thing in that container. It's not the only thing in the container. Other things in that container are passion, grief, excitement, and a regulated person has access to all of those. They don't just get stuck in one gear. The real goal, and one that I have been so happy to achieve here, is energy to use, not energy that's being burnt up for survival when I don't need it. And a regulated nervous system has energy available for things like passion, creativity, and a general connection to life. Someone that always immediately comes to mind is Tony Robbins. He is wildly passionate and energetic. So a severely sensitized person may watch him and feel completely overwhelmed. But when you pull back, that's really their capacity talking. And he's not dysregulated just because he isn't calm. He is a good example of someone who is fully and completely using their energy. That's what a container that has capacity looks like. And I get similar comments like that at least a couple times a week of someone commenting on how fast I talk or how intense I talk and how that must mean that I'm dysregulated. And what that actually reveals is that their container is simply too small to hold that excess energy and to receive that excess energy. And so because of that, any additional energy feels like too much on a severely sensitized system. And I totally get it because I used to feel that way too. Anything that added any extra stimulation, I was like, this is just too much for my system. But the good thing about capacity is that capacity can grow. I don't want you measuring your healing based on how calm you feel. That is not the correct measuring stick. Because what I've seen again and again is it leads you into a real trap. Because when calm is the goal, any type of activation is going to be read as wrong. This is something that I really struggled with. You start worrying is this anxiety back? Because I'm not used to feeling these other emotions. We've spent so much time really hyper-focusing on our symptoms and on trying to calm down and on trying to relax that any other type of activation is read as a problem by us. You lose the ability to allow yourself to feel anything that registers as activation. So if you're frustrated, that feels bad. If you're excited, that seems a little bit suspicious. If you feel passionate, oh, this kind of feels similar to dysregulation. And then the only experience you allow yourself to have is one that feels anything but activated. When you have spent years in anxiety and sensitization, the system only reads one flavor of activation, and that is threat. So it can be normal to interpret anything else that feels at all activating, like having energy moving is what I mean when I say activating. You can't always interpret any energy moving in your body as a threat. You're going to find that when you start experiencing these other positive emotions like joy and excitement, your nervous system in the beginning won't have a reference point for this. It just goes, oh, looks activated, looks like anxiety, looks like danger. And these may be emotions that you haven't felt in years just simply because you've spent so many years in survival mode. When they show up, they're going to feel unfamiliar. And what do we know? a sensitized nervous system reads unfamiliar as dangerous. And eventually we start using regulation tools to start fighting our own nervous system. Because every time you feel that activation and then you reach for a tool or you reach for a technique to calm it down, you just reinforce the message that this sensation, this experience is dangerous. And I want you to see this in two different ways. One of them is trying to contain what you're feeling and make it turn to calm. Another one is expanding your capacity to feel more. We don't want to manage the panic. We don't want to manage the symptoms. We want to expand our capacity to deal with life. We want to expand what you can hold. And just imagine, I really like to consider it like a container. When the container is so much more large, there's more space for it. When it's super small, then anything feels like it fills it up and now I'm overflowing. Building capacity is the best thing you can do, and building capacity is the goal of nervous system desensitization and nervous system regulation. Of course, these two things get lumped together all the time, but they are different starting places. If you don't know whether you're dysregulated or you're sensitized, I have a quiz that you can take. If you are sensitized, your nervous system is on high alert all the time. Your baseline is elevated. Your capacity is so small. And then everything feels like too much. Sounds, people, you spend a lot of your time extremely overstimulated. So this doesn't come down to you're overstimulated from bad things. You're overstimulated from everything, including people talking fast, including the TV being on in the background. Your container has shrunken down to almost nothing. You can't tolerate much stimulation. A normal conversation can completely drain you. And chances are you are monitoring every sensation, every symptom, and you're constantly checking to see if you're getting better, which is what's keeping your system stuck. And what you need at this stage is to rebuild your container from scratch. This is where very clearly the work is not about adding more tools. In fact, more tools often make it worse just because you have so little capacity as it is. What actually works is learning to accept the situation that you're in and allowing it to be there without turning allowing into another tool to make it go away, and starting to live your life anyway, even with the sensations, and learning how to take them with you. I get asked a lot about this kind of sounds like I'm gaslighting myself into believing that I'm okay. And I think my response to that is my nervous system is actually trying to gaslight me right now into thinking something is actually wrong. So yes, we do kind of have to gaslight it back and say, I have been checked out. I know this is a mind-body issue. I know this is nervous system driven. So I am going to live as if I do not have these conditions, as I slowly expand my baseline and build up my capacity. Your system needs to get the message that the symptoms you are experiencing and the sensations that are going on for you are not dangerous, because right now it is reading the situation incorrectly, and it is our job to reteach it. Now, on the other hand, we have dysregulation. This is when you have that capacity, but something is kind of knocking you out of that window of tolerance, and you are getting a little hyper aroused, and on the anxious side, you're getting hypo-aroused and you're on the more depressed side. Maybe you had a stressful event or a triggering week and you become activated and you even get stuck there a little bit, but your baseline isn't permanently elevated at this point. When you deal with dysregulation, which is normal for everybody, normally you've got it. You can handle your day, but sometimes there are events or situations that tip you out of a place where you can immediately come back down to baseline, but you know what normal feels like for you. And sometimes you find yourself getting stuck outside of that. And in that case, it's just a practice of returning back to the capacity that you already have. It means that your container is still big, it just temporarily got flooded. And I'll have more content on dysregulation coming soon. But I want you to know that whether you're sensitized or whether you're dysregulated, we are all working toward the same thing, which is expanded capacity. When you're sensitized, you're building the container. When you are dysregulated, you are returning to the container that already exists. So if everything feels like way too much right now, there's a really good chance you're sensitized. And this isn't a bad thing, but it is your nervous system letting you know that we need to rebuild this capacity. And that takes time, and it's going to require a lot of patience with yourself. I want to talk about what an expanded capacity looks like in real life. This is something I've seen in my life over and over again. These things that were so basic, like getting a stressful email, for example. My heart can race for a second and then it settles. Or someone can say something that hurts my feelings. And instead of spiraling for 3 days, I have 15 minutes of activation followed by regulation. My body knows what to do. I can have the threat, I can have the activation, I can have the trigger, and my nervous system knows what to do to determine, is this a threat or not? An email is not a threat. My nervous system gets that now, and it comes back down. Another thing is that basic stuff doesn't stress me out. Too much stimulation doesn't stress me out anymore. I'm able to take that in without getting completely overwhelmed, and that's a huge change from how it used to be for me. I can feel extreme levels of excitement and anticipation without translating that into, I don't know, this feels a whole lot like anxiety. I think physiologically, many of these emotional states share the same physiology, so they feel the same in the body. But being excited is not the same thing as your body turning on a threat response. And in time, you'll know the difference. What it doesn't look like, though, is being calm all the time, never getting activated, and just being completely unbothered by everything in my life. Like, I'm a human. But the point now is that because I have that capacity, my nervous system does what its job actually is, which is to interpret whether or not a threat is real, respond accordingly, and then bring me back down to my baseline, which is much lower now, thank God. So every time you feel something really uncomfortable and you don't fight it or run from it or try to figure it out or fix it, your body builds capacity. Your system eventually will settle on its own. You don't have to be involved in that. That is what's possible for you once you've expanded this container. You are actively teaching your nervous system that it's safe to feel this. So if you notice that you're starting to feel more things, even more uncomfortable things, even more uncomfortable but good things, that's an excellent sign that your capacity is expanding. Your container is literally getting bigger, and that's the actual goal that we have here. The goal is not calm. The goal is a bigger container, more capacity. We want to be able to hold the full range of the human experience without collapsing or freaking the hell out. So the next time you feel anxious, frustrated, overwhelmed, or even excited, instead of reaching for a tool with the intention to bring yourself back to calm, I want you to let it be. Just notice. Can you let it be there? Can you let your system come back down to baseline on its own? While knowing that baseline doesn't mean a baseline level of calm. It means a baseline level of capacity. Your goal isn't to become a different, more quieter version of yourself. The goal is a bigger container and energy to use and to give to your life. And if you're here watching this right now, you're probably already building that bigger container. It's the best work you'll ever do. See you guys next time.